Hey team, it's Michelle here. Before I begin, I need to inform you that in today's episode, we do talk about suicide, which I know can be distressing. Please skip or stop this episode if this topic causes any distress. If you need resources or support, go to lifeline.org.au or alternatively, for 24-hour free counselling in Australia, the number for Lifeline is 13 11 14. Please look after yourself. Now on with the show. I will be 44 this year, and I can happily say that I have been able to travel, work, and meet some incredible people throughout my life, here and around the globe. Some have provided guidance and opportunities that have contributed to the fabric of my journey. Others have simply left an impression on my heart that I've taken with me as I continue the days I'm given in this lifetime. My guest today stands out above all. As I was attempting to write this introduction for today's episode, I continually fell short. Trying to encapsulate what it's like to know and spend time with her in a few sentences is excruciating, and there is a good reason. There is no one like her. So the only way to kick off the show is to jump straight in and introduce her. Please give a warm Stop Making Your Bed podcast welcome to the CEO of Lifeline Canberra, Carrie-Anne Leeson. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, no, thank you. It's just a true pleasure to have you here and be able to have this conversation. So I want to admit, which I did earlier to you, until a few years ago, I had a severe lack of understanding of the whole Lifeline organisation. The number 13, 11, 14 was thankfully in my vocabulary and provided a sense of comfort that somehow and somewhere, if I ever needed it, I was able to call that number. But outside of this, I didn't understand the level of service provided and the depth of the organisation. So I wanted to start today's podcast with a question. Can you please describe what Lifeline Australia is as a whole?
Look, I explain it in so many ways. I think it's important to say, and I'm so heartened that you had it there knowing that you could use it. It is something I cannot imagine a world without. Lifeline is everything to everyone, in a sense. It's there for absolutely any one of us at any age for any conceivable human crisis at any time of day or night. And that's simply put. There's so many ways to engage with it, either telephonically, text, online chat. And that's something that people use to the tune of over 1 million Australians a year.
Amazing.
Will contact the service to get through the day, the week or the month. In addition to that, we also have a lot of services on the ground in various communities. We have 41 centres around the country, and not all of them are service providers for the 13, 11, 14 number. Some of them are doing face-to-face services, and we're one of those centres here in Canberra. You have to respond to the community need, and that's what we take pride in doing here, making sure that the Canberra community, who have been so incredible to us and are just the most generous in terms of not just donations, people think about that, but in terms of their time. We have the highest rate of volunteering. We have the highest rates of connection, and that shows through. Yeah. So in terms of our on-the-ground services, we have everything from prevention to postvention. In the preventative stakes, we've got learning, training. We've got online courses as well as face-to-face courses. And that can be anything from psychological first aid through to mental health first aid and suicide first aid. We work with the AFP. We work with emergency services, defence, social services, a lot of private organisations in terms of understanding now the psychosocial factors and the risk factors in terms of employees. We empower employees to take care of their own mental health. And then we've got all of our social and community services, self-compassion courses, etc. You come down through the crisis realm, we've got the face-to-face and phone services. And then in the postvention stakes, we've got the Bereaved by Suicide Support Group, which is a group that came about as a result of the number of people we were engaging with who'd lost loved ones to suicide and had nowhere to go to, I guess, come to terms with their grief, to harness their grief, to start their healing process and to meet others who had experienced the same thing. And we're currently looking into an Eclipse support group, which is individuals who have attempted self-harm or suicide and survived.
Okay.
And as a means to support them further. Yeah.
That's amazing, because I do remember when the bereavement group came in, I remember thinking growing up that it wasn't part of our narrative. Even hearing about a family friend passing, I'm only 44, that the term suicide was never used or that someone had taken their life. It was just a complete silence, and not having that understanding and that support because of the silence, because it was such a taboo topic. Is that something that you work with, just trying to take away that stigma?
Yes. Suicide and the words we use to describe it today are very different.
Mm-hmm.
Suicide was something that was deemed illegal in the past.
Okay.
And that's why a lot of people will refer to someone as having committed suicide. And it's something that, again, personally, I say to people, just talk about it. Don't worry about if you say the word commit, just talk about it. As you get into anything, as anything else in life, you start to become more versed in what it means and how to approach it and how to discuss it. The main thing about stigma is to talk about it. You don't want people so fearful of using the wrong language that they don't speak about it. They don't ask the questions. They don't have the tough conversations. But stigma is a very, very big part of a lot of our preventative training.
Mm-hmm.
I think COVID, we talk a lot about the impact on our mental health through COVID, but COVID did a lot to remove stigma. Suddenly, it didn't matter who you were, what you had, how strong you felt.
Yeah.
We all struggled with anxiety, uncertainty. Some people, isolation and depression coincided with their experience, and we were all thrown into the same boat.
Yeah.
We were all acknowledging that this was impacting our mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the conversation changed significantly for our community.
Yes.
And now we're able to have those conversations far more readily. But even in the workplace, I come from a workplace health background. We would go into departments, into businesses, and we weren't allowed to discuss stress. And that was as little as 15 years ago.
Really?
Whereas now, it's become a very big part of an organisation's culture.
Do you feel that the news media is behind on the 8 ball in terms of communicating to us that something has happened to someone that's familiar within, Australia? They still don't use that term, but yet they'll use the Lifeline number at the end of the segment, but they're still not using the right terminology. Do you feel that's still somewhere we've got to go with that?
Look, I think simply put, it's a difficult topic to discuss.
Yeah.
There are political, legal, it's potentially economical for some media outlets if they discuss the topic incorrectly.
Okay.
We have guidelines. We have ways that you can and can't discuss it. There are barriers to discussing it outside of certain hours on radio, for example. And I think there is a fear factor in terms of what you can and can't say.
Okay.
So I look at that with kindness and compassion.
No, that's a lovely. I wanted to hear your opinion on that. For someone who's grown up that generation, I always felt it was lacking. But having that understanding now, I'm quite sympathetic to how they're trying to report that in the right way. Yeah.
It's difficult, media in general, and I'm currently on a media ban, so if there's something happening out there, you'll have to let me know.
Okay.
Not because of the way things are reported, but just in terms of the content. I think we receive a lot of content at Lifeline already, but there isn't a balance in our media around what they're reporting.
No.
My grandfather always said to me, wherever you see pain, you're watching the news or you hear it on the radio, he said, you better believe and you better look for, if it's on television, there'll be more people helping than hurting.
Yeah.
And we don't seem to have that conversation enough. We feed the wrong wolf. We keep talking about the things that are happening that are traumatic or painful, where there's loss involved. And I think that does something to our minds as well.
Absolutely. And I think that's why I have you sitting in that seat right now, because Lifeline was that phone number and it was there if I needed it. But meeting you all and understanding the organisation and the love that comes from that organisation and the community. And I have to say, you have the most extraordinary team behind you. I haven't met a single person that I wouldn't adopt, take on a holiday with me. Just that community that you've built, and and they pride themselves on that love, and it is just pure love. Where you look at the organisation itself, it's can be quite sad, but that's not what you portray in our community. And just that. So, how do you feel that is something that every community experiences, or just unique to us? Or
I think that, look, it's up to each individual.
Yeah.
At Lifeline, and you're right.
Yeah.
Shout out to the team. They are incredible. They're family. And what we aim to create every single day is a sanctuary for them to come to in that office, knowing full well what's going to come at us.
Yeah.
Or,
Each day.
Each and every day. And it's interesting because we've been doing a lot of work, and we've actually had someone come in who's wanting to look at the organisation from the outside and try and do a documentary on what it is to be someone that works at Lifeline. And to see it through his eyes has been quite an eye-opener for me. I think you have to love people. I don't know, we live in a very different time now to even 50 years ago. Yes, we have a role to do. Yes, we have to bring capability to an organisation. But I think more than that, we have to bring compatibility.
Mm-hmm.
You have to bring a real desire to leave others better than you found them.
Yeah.
And we seek out those people. You know, everything we want to know about someone's capabilities on their resume when they apply for a role. The reason we want to meet them is to see whether they can come into our culture and heal and contribute and grow and thrive despite the content, despite what we...
Yeah.
And they do. It doesn't mean there's not a lot of tears, but there's so much support. There's flexibility. It's really about giving people the control over the environment they're in because we co-create it.
Absolutely. And even just in the short time that I've known you, the expansion of how you've found something in a community that we want to embrace. So our book fair, the Lifeline Book Fair, is extraordinary. I can remember it years ago just being a small little book fair. How many people went through the last Lifeline Canberra Book Fair?
It was about 25 to 30,000 people.
Incredible. And we're only a small town, only a small community.
That's 10% almost, yeah.
Incredible. And the volunteers and the trucks, but the passion behind that book fair. I mean, there's several book fairs throughout the year, but that one is just, you can just see the whole community get behind it. Yeah. And it's secondhand books. But I do believe that we know as a community, as the greater presence that you provide, but we get enjoyment from that as well. So I do quite find that a little thing will be tried and then it takes off in the community. But I do want to thank you for trying all the different things that you guys do to allow us an opportunity to help.
Engage.
Because sometimes you want to help and absolutely giving money, essential. But sometimes we want more than that. We want to engage, as you just said, with you guys and your team and how we can, build on that for you. Yeah, I think that's incredible because we may never use the number, but I know that that number needs to be there for those people that do require it. Yeah. So in terms of community volunteering with the calls, how does someone go about doing that?
That is probably the largest volunteer undertaking a human could embark on. It is easily one of the biggest game changers you can embark on as well. I think for an individual who wants to volunteer on the crisis support line, we say all you need is the time and the empathy.
Okay.
The training is incredible. It's an accredited course. That's the cost base of our organisation.
Yeah.
People want to know where the money's going. It's to training crisis supporters. We have close to 10,000 around the country. These are individuals that are engaged every fortnight for a minimum of 4 hours to remain accredited. It's an intense 3 months course.
Mm-hmm.
Used to be 6 months back in the day when I did it. It's 3 months of training. You then have another 9 months on the phones before you are accredited.
Okay.
That's 100 hours of commitment alone just to get that accreditation. Then you need to maintain it. And I say you need to maintain it. It sounds like a lot of work, but it's really about ensuring that we don't harm someone to help someone else.
Correct.
Our crisis supporters are earth angels and they're mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters too.
Yeah.
And often they come to us with a lived experience. So for them to be able to go into that phone room, we need to know that we've got a large team supporting them. We're there for them through every call. Mm-hmm. There are mental health calls, crisis calls, and imminent risk calls, safety calls. And they don't know what's going to come down that phone when they pick it up. And they might pick it up between 5 and 15 times in a shift, depending on the shift. The beautiful thing about the training is that you use those skills every day.
Yeah.
Off the phones. Even if people don't make it onto the phones, we still are so heartened by the fact that they take those skills out into the community. You will use them when you're talking to someone at the checkout, when you are sitting at your desk at work, when your child comes home from school or your partner comes home from work. You use those skills all of the time. Yeah. They are skills for life, and they always ensure that you leave someone better than you found them. So the training is a large undertaking, but it's definitely worth it.
Absolutely. And there's as you said, there's a cost associated with that. So I know personally I couldn't do that. I just know that within myself and lived experience that that's just something I can't do. But I'm very happy to engage in Lifeline Canberra in other elements that allow that to happen. Is there a cost associated with each phone call that you can sort of give us as an understanding of how that costs?
Yeah. So we have, this is something that a mentor taught me when I first started in the role. And he said to me, there's a lot going on. He said, but the power and your role is about the story.
Yeah.
And the power is in the story. And your ability to tell that story is what will assist others in joining you. And one of the things that we came up with, and it was about maybe 5 or 6 years ago, a board member, an incredible human in his own right, we created the concept of the cost per call, which is around $26.
Okay.
And so every time someone picks up a handful of books at the book fair, at about $4 each, because they are a bargain, you're looking at a life-changing call being answered. So that's sort of your win-win-win scenario. But people that want to donate want to know that they're making a difference.
Yes.
And for as little as $26, you can change a life or even save a life.
Save a life. That's actually an incredible thing to know and have an understanding that helping in any way that you can result in a direct life saved and just helping and support our community and the community at large. So to ask, you independently raise money. It's not always government funded, which I also think is something people feel that it is because Lifeline is such an institution in Australia. We feel it's government run, which it is not. And I think that needs to be understood by so many people. So when you are buying those books, and you're making the difference because it is not funded the way that we think it is funded.
Yeah.
And changing that is very important. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you do any work with young children, youth schools and things like that?
We have some incredible courses. I spend a great deal of my time at schools engaging with grade 9, 10, 11 and 12. And that I find so heartening. Just the fact that there are so many questions. Over the years, I've realised that I need to keep it short, my intro, and then open the floor, because there's a capacity to talk about it in a way that my generation, we're the same age, by the way.
Right.
There's a capacity there that doesn't exist.
Yes, it's a different conversation.
Yes, it's just incredible how open they are. But in terms of our training, we deal obviously on the phones with a number of children below the age of 15 even. I know that the youngest I've ever received a call, 6-year-old, is from a 6-year-old boy. We know that suicide is the leading cause of death in Australians between the ages of 15, which is so young, and 44. That's the prime of your life. It's a leading cause of death. So yes, we do engage a lot with them in that crisis space. On the preventative side, we've got our mental health ambassadors for schools. We've got some incredible programs, the Working Mind, the Inquiring Mind for university students. And those programs have come to us from Canada. They're actually evidence-based.
Brilliant.
And they're just in such simple terms, explained to people using colours, 4 colours, how to understand where you're at with your mental health.
Okay.
Whether you're heading towards injury or illness, and how to recover, how to have the conversation, all destigmatizing language. So it's quite incredible. That's probably the most rewarding space, really.
Is Lifeline Australia as a whole doing that, or is it just something Lifeline Canberra has embraced?
It's Lifeline Canberra.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, so we are a licensor of the brand to be able to provide the 13, 11, 14 service. But a lot of what we do is
that's
bespoke.
An initiative here in our town. Incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that. Just because as a parent, I have teenagers. One is turning 17 and one is 16. And until you hit that phase, I don't believe I had that thought in my head. The moment honestly, it is that age, that 15, you think their hormone have changed, the friendships, the breakups, the relationships, the stress of school. It is all of a sudden on the front of your mind every day.
Yeah.
No matter how well they're doing one day to the next, it's a fear. But I think having those conversations, and maybe if they are getting it at school and they're having conversations with their friends, taking away that stigma. And I do feel COVID did change that, because we're all talking about our anxiety and our mental health. And in our house, we talk about our mental health to no end.
That's great. Yeah.
But the fear, and knowing that they can go somewhere, they're not going to be judged. And they go to each other and their peers. But then, as I said to my daughter, there is a moment where you can't help. And you need to go to someone else. There is that level, and you just have to understand that, because you're going to accept that burden, and you will go under. And it's incredible, that fear. And I didn't realize there were school programs, so that makes me extremely happy.
Yeah. And in the youth space, you're the first to hear about it.
Oh, tell me. Breaking news.
We're breaking news. We're launching the most incredible concept at our book fair in September, and it's really a model for parents to be able to talk to children as young as 4, 5, and 6 when they're reading to them about emotions. Because as adults, we need to learn ourselves how to engage. And again, this is part of listening to the community and hearing, how do I talk to my child about this issue?
It's hard. You don't want to use direct language and
are they being bullied? How do I approach it? I don't want to raise it if they're not worried about it. How do I start this conversation with children that are so young? Because you place all of your adult, I guess, fears and experience onto that little conversation. But it's a conversation that needs to be had.
Absolutely.
And so we've got an incredible concept coming out in September, which we're very proud of. It'll be, I guess, sort of taste tested at the gala. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I will be at that gala.
Yay. Oh, well, that's great.
Oh, that's amazing. That's so nice to hear. And it's just, as a parent, being able to know that there's resources and things for us to be able to look at and go to is so important. Because I think the only advice I was given is that you get the best conversations in the car when they're not looking at you.
Yes.
And those conversations will flow, and don't ever ask direct questions, allow them to come to you. But as a parent, you want to step in and you want to help and you want to be there. But if I had started those conversations at 4, the conversations at 15 would be very different. And I think parents learn through their children, their children's eyes. Yeah. And you can understand how to have those conversations with workmates and friends and parents and things like that.
Yeah. It's incredible. They taught me so much through COVID. I saw the world through their eyes, and I just channeled. They thought it was this magical time where they got to spend all day with mum. Mum did school, mum did cook. I mean, from our perspective, it was like somebody. But again, to your point, you're only as happy as your unhappiest child. Yeah. So we're constantly trying to avoid that pain for them.
Absolutely.
So understanding where the balance is and letting them go through it, but having the safety of conversation there always to know that you can check in and they can tell you how they're feeling.
And that safety in that knowledge. And then you can, and that my kids actually are very aware of the phone number, because there could be a topic that they don't want to tell me. Something that, that they want to protect me. So knowing that they can have that and have that availability. And I do thank you for that. I really do appreciate that service is there. Yeah. So in terms of the bereavement support groups and the ability to people to get together, do you find that uptake is there, or people are still sort of holding back and internalizing their grief?
No, we launched a trial, again, without financial support. We just saw the need and found the funding for it to launch about 5 years ago now. And we did 2 courses in that year. We now have 3, 4, 5 courses and a huge wait list. It's
incredible.
It's incredible. It's a 12-week program. So it's actually something that you go through, again, clinically. It is guided, it is supported, and there are modules that you work through to make sure that you are progressing through the stages in the course. But then you can form this group afterwards where you get together and you've got people with that shared experience. And I think we've all got it.
Yes.
You lose one life to suicide, and that's approximately, they say, 159 people affected by it. So you just look at our statistics and know that so many of us are carrying that pain in our heart.
Yeah.
And so it does give you that empathy. But the course in itself, yes, unfortunately, we just, again, are sitting with a wait list and we can't see everyone when they
need
want
it the
to
most.
be seen. Yeah,
absolutely. And does the support group involve a whole family, or usually just one family member, or
so
family?
That's a very good point. And one of the criteria is you cannot go through the course with anyone you know.
Okay.
It's a very safe space. And often you'll find, with anything where there is loss involved of a loved one, even if it's not suicide, after the funeral, sometimes there's a lot of divisive thoughts and feelings around either assets or how things were handled or how people are reacting, because we all deal with grief differently. Yeah. So it just gives people coming through that program a very safe space without fear or being managed or controlled through it for the other person's healing. It just becomes
incredible. And
their own
having
space.
the group at the end, because I know seeing a psychologist or psychiatrist, it's that one-on-one process. But quite often, you want the people with the shared experience. Just to have you don't have to say anything. Just that knowledge and that love together. That's such an incredible thing that you've created.
Yeah,
absolutely wonderful.
Oh. I will pass that on to the team. I think they're incredible too. So any opportunity.
Absolutely amazing. I don't like the push-up challenge, but I'll take it. That was an interesting.
Damn it, that was my next question.
Oh, no, I won't do that. No, and the thing is, when we do attend the Lifeline Gala, it is the night of the year in Canberra, absolutely hands down. The joy and the love in that room, even though we're addressing a very heavy topic, and I would confidently say the majority of us in the room have had a shared experience. But the ability to create that love and that friendship, for me, that's in that scale. It's that big group that you've done for all of us, that you can find happy moments and you can find that love and you can still enjoy life. Because I quite often feel that suicide has that stigma that you can't have those loving moments. Like you don't, guilt is part of that. I didn't, because quite often you have the guilt of I couldn't help, So having an experience and being with an organisation that shows you that that's okay and that love is spectacular is absolutely incredible. Do you find that people, when they join the organisation or think this shouldn't be happening, do you find people don't sort of embrace that love and joy behind what you guys do?
I think that, we deal with a lot of people who are facing significant challenges, whether it be mental health or in terms of isolation, loss, relationship breakdowns, and there's often a lot of anger there.
Yeah.
So we do receive sometimes a lot of misdirected anger.
Yeah.
Our way, but again, it's about focusing on what you said. There's a life to be lived for all of us, and a life of meaning and a life of substance is not one that is void of pain or suffering. Yeah. It's about looking to each other to be roadmaps. It's about acknowledging that we all carry that pain. It's about helping each other with our backpacks, you know, and that's what we try and aim for on the gala night is people know what Lifeline does. And personally, I've sat at events where you feel bashed between, around the head and through the heart and stomach by a cause or a concept because they're again, an unintended consequence of trying to raise funds.
Correct.
It's very easy to have
needed.
Yeah. It's very easy to have that conversation in a way that really affects people. So we know that Lifeline is very confronting. We're so grateful that people still show up to support it, knowing that and trusting us that we're going to take them through an evening and explain what we do, but hopefully leave them better than we found them.
Oh, it's an undertone of love and acceptance and gratitude from us to you for what you do.
That's lovely to hear.
It is. It's at again night of the year. So what can we do as a community to help your organisation and your wonderful team? Yeah,
look, thank you. It's really about putting a face to a name or a voice to a name, which is what you're doing. You do so much to support us across all of our events. It's really, as a community, it's about looking at yourself, I would say. People, the best thing we could do, and our board, I had a board meeting last night, we'd love it if we went out of business.
Of course.
We'd love it if the phone stopped ringing.
Calls.
Yeah, that's what it would mean. And it's a very rare strategy for a business or an organisation to have. That probably won't happen, not in our lifetime. But the one thing I would say, and if it's a request, is to help us by stopping, taking a moment, and trying to feel how you are and seeing whether you're happy with where you're at. That takes self-awareness, but more than that, it takes self-compassion. You have to value yourself enough to do it. That's a massive, massive ask. It's harder than some people say, look, let me just donate $26. I'd rather do that. But, if you do that, you're helping us. Okay. You're helping us. You're making it possible to heal. You're making it possible to live a life of substance, and that's what we want for you. But know that we're there if you're struggling with that or you need to talk about that as well. It's really about self-care, which doesn't come without self-awareness and self-compassion.
No, thank you for that advice. It's exactly what I wanted to hear, because I do feel that people think you should be writing the check, but the reality is it's here. It's in our hearts and who we are and how we feel and ourselves. And no, thank you very much. But I do want to end. I'm going to not keep you too long because she has the most important job I've ever heard of. So we have a little thing at the end that we do at each podcast. As this show is based on the fundamental belief that we can do better and be better by not only learning as much as we can, but finding out what works for us. To be true to who we are supposed to be, we end each podcast with an interview question, a question for our interviewees.
Ooh.
What did you want to be when you grew up and why?
Oh dear. I was one of those kids. My brother is my most beautiful human. He grew up wanting to be a fighter pilot from day dot, and he is. And he's an incredible one. He's disgustingly good looking. He looks like Top Gun.
Oh my
It's just
gosh.
incredible. And he's got a heart of gold. I just sort of bumbled through my life with a lot of unconditional love from my family, in a sense that I was always going to be okay. My dad was wild. He was like a yes man. Every day was yes day. My mum was a safety net. So I wanted to seek out inspiration, work with good people doing something I loved. Having said that, I did finish high school and my parents said you need to go and get a degree. Yeah. So I started studying law. I lasted 1 week.
Okay.
I realized that was going to be a lot of hard work and I was not keen on that. So I then went into psychology and management, which coincided with my love of people and curiosity of people.
And empathy.
Yeah. I'm an introvert by nature, but I love people. I love the mind. I think it's, people say the final frontier is out there. I think it's between our 2 ears, and understanding that's the mission and the goal for me. So I didn't really have a goal. And
sounds like you had more of a path, a pathway to be exactly who you're meant to be today and doing what you're doing today.
Yeah.
And working with your team. That's like the ultimate people.
I nailed it.
You absolutely. You created your own little environment, your own little world. Fighter pilot's cool, but I do feel that what you're doing is just as cool as being a fighter pilot.
Thank you.
But thank you for joining me. I really appreciate your time today. And maybe if we're lucky, she can come back and talk to us again.
Of course. Anytime.
Thank you. Before we officially end the show, it's time for the legal information. Please be aware the information and advice provided on this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to provide legal, professional, or medical advice, and you should not rely on it as such. Always consult with a qualified professional. We also do not accept any responsibility or liability for any actions or decisions you may take based on the information provided on this podcast. Please seek professional advice appropriate to your situation. Thank you again for listening. See you soon.